Vikram, thanks for your time. It's been a year since we last spoke here in Davos, and I'd just like your insight into where Citi is now versus last year. Is it a more sound institution?
We actually had a very good 2010. Our goal for 2010 was to establish sustainable profitability. We made over $10 billion in profits for the year. Most importantly, the government sold its stock in Citi, and they made $12.3 billion on that sale. And so we believe we've got all the elements of sustainable profitability in place. We have good financial strength, over $40 billion of reserves. And our goal going forward is to turn that into responsible and sustainable growth. And that's what we're focused on.
So responsible, that's a very key word. We now have Dodd-Frank, we have Basel III, we have so many reforms in this industry. What is a responsible bank in your mind?
A responsible bank focuses on its clients. And it's in its business. It's in the business to serve clients. And when we serve our clients, we ask three questions. The first one is what we're doing appropriate for the client? Is it right for them? The second one is, does it add economic value to the client? And the third question is, are we being responsible to the system? If we do those things, if we ask those questions and do our business correctly in helping clients with those three questions answered, I think we'll be practicing responsible finance as an industry.
When you say clients, do you mean everyone from the average depositor that just has, say, a checking account at Citi to people that work and depend on your investment bankers?
Absolutely. A client is somebody who we have a relationship with. And that relationship can be from anybody who owns a checking account, has a savings account with us, or has all their banking with us, all the way to some of the largest companies in the world, or for that matter, governments. We just did a wonderful bond issue for the government of Nigeria, their client. And we treat them all exactly the same way by answering those three questions.
We now have financial reform, which we didn't have at this point last year. All the rules still aren't written. But do you think that it's the right reform, Vikram?
So certainly we cannot go back to the excesses of what we had before this crisis. And we've been actually a very strong proponent for good financial reform. And I think all the concepts are there, and people are working on them. We've gone a long way in terms of getting to the right answers. There are still questions open, and these are about calibration. And the calibration issues come down to very much how do you make sure that the system is strong, at the same time the system supports economic growth?
Well,
and some of those things are things that we all still need to work through.
So on that point of economic growth, Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, made a very interesting point this week. He said bad policy can harm economic growth, stability, jobs, et cetera. Are you worried, Vikram, about over-regulation of the industry?
I'm not worried about that. What I'm really concerned about is that we get to the right kind of regulation. And those things have a number of different elements. The regulation has to be something that's not pro-cyclical. It has to be something that applies everywhere around the world. It has to create a level playing field. But, when you talk to the regulators and central bankers, they get it. They understand that we need both a safe banking system as well as an economy that grows. And that's the calibration we're all involved with. And so I'm quite positive about where these deliberations are going to come out for the economy.
Optimistic.
Absolutely.
You have warned, though, that over-regulation could, in essence, facilitate sort of a shadow banking sector. And it seems to mirror some of the comments Gary Cohn of Goldman Sachs made this week saying, the hedge funds aren't regulated enough, so the risk will shift to them, and if they fail, what will that do to the system? Mm-hmm. Are you in agreement with him at all on that?
We were one of the first ones to point out that when we think about level playing fields, it's not only amongst banks around the world or banks within a country, but you got to think about the large shadow banking system that's out there, and you want to make sure the rules apply uniformly.
They don't right now.
And that is exactly what the Basel Commission is looking at. The next thing on their agenda, having dealt with some of the capital issues for the banks and what it takes to make for safer banks that can continue to lend, is to look at the shadow banking system. And they are really working through that in a very thorough way. And I expect they know the issues. And I keep going back to saying that this is still work in progress. The debates that are occurring are exactly right. Many of the answers and the directions we're taking are right. Some of these questions still need to be answered, and we will have to get it calibrated correctly.
here in Davos, you've been talking about financial inclusion in emerging markets. Explain your point on that to us and why emerging markets are so important for Citi.
Let me say one thing. Financial inclusion is something that's important to us in the U.S. It's not only about the emerging markets. As a matter of fact, there are so many unbanked in the U.S., and there are some aspects of regulation that can actually increase that if they're not calibrated correctly. So we need to be aware of the fact.
That?
Well, I think those aspects in the U.S. that can change the cost structure by which you serve clients may result in fewer branches, and we're working on that. I mean, we are looking at that as an opportunity for coming up with more technologically driven systems in order to help our clients. But that is the point. There are about 2.5 billion unbanked in the world, and we all need to work on trying to figure out how to use the new technologies, mobile phones and computing, as a way to get them included. Because once you get people into the financial system, studies show the economies grow faster, they do better, they do better for their families. These are all good things. And so we've been working at that at Citi for a number of years. But we think it's really important now because technology makes it possible to serve them better.
What market to you is sort of the most interesting and the fastest changing in that aspect right now? Is it Brazil, India? Where is it?
You know, funnily enough, one of the markets that's furthest ahead is Kenya.
Really?
Why? And they are there because they have a very strong wireless and a mobile phone system there, and they were one of the first ones to create mobile accounts for customers, and many of the people in Kenya are using phones as a way to pay people, pay each other, do their buying and selling, in some ways almost treating it like a bank account. So there are lots of examples of this working. And by the way, every country is going to have a different solution, but this is the time to focus on it.
So one of the things we've seen in this country as a result of reform is higher rates on credit cards. Some free checking accounts are going away. Consumers are across the board seeing their fees increase, and there's this divide between, well, there was taxpayer bailouts for banks that needed it, and now some consumers feel like they're paying the cost. Not just at Citi, across the board. So can we bridge that divide?
Well, I think we have to, and I really look at that as an opportunity and a call to action for banks like ours. And you know what happens is that the kind of profitability and the fee structure in a particular industry influences how you build a business model.
Sure.
And with the changes that have occurred, which I believe are in the interest of clients and customers, and many of them are long coming, and many of them that we've been proponents of over the years, it's time for banks to figure out how to change their business models to serve customers and clients. And that, again, to me, technology is a big, big answer to that.
Change in what way? What way do they still need to change?
Well, change in the sense you have to reduce your cost of delivery.
So it's
technology.
Clients.
Of course, this technology is one aspect to it, and we're doing a lot of that, and opening smart branches. We have remote banking, we have mobile banking, we have all of those things that are going on. So there is an answer to these changes, and the changes are in line with what I believe are in the interest of the customer, and we just need to get there. It may take some time, but we're working fast to get there.
And finally, just on a more personal note, as a leader who led Citi through the crisis and is still leading the bank, what, Vikram, is the most important lesson that you learned as a leader in this day and age?
Well, you know, the most important part of what got us here is 260,000 people working together. This wasn't done by one person or two people. This was everybody in the organization working in the same direction. In order to do that, you've got to make sure they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the plan is, how you're going to get there, and what the role is they need to play. And I got to tell you, I'm thankful for having the kind of people at Citi. They locked arms, they worked together, and got us here.
Didn't give up.
Absolutely. And we're really happy about where we are. I'm actually very excited because when you look at the strategy we have, we look at how much America needs to be connected to the world, to tap foreign consumer bases, to go to the emerging markets. There's no other bank that is positioned better than Citi to help our clients do that.
Are you going to bring more people on board? Is 2011 a year to hire?
We are hiring people, and we're hiring people in a number of different areas. Technology is one of the things we talked about. We're hiring a number of technologists. And we're doing the same thing in terms of client relationship managers. We're completely focused on our client-centric model, and we're bringing people in. So we keep doing that in a very steady way, but very much in response to our clients growing.
Vikram, thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.